Okay, so my talk is sort of a quick introduction to the state of authentication and authorization in EUDAT, and then followed by a demo of some of it at least. And all of this is a presentation on behalf of the AAI task force in EUDAT. So it's a group of people who are working together with the communities to try and integrate the AAI. And in case you don't know what EUDAT is, in a nutshell, it's aiming to build a data infrastructure to support other European projects that may not have thought of building a data infrastructure for themselves, or they need to share data with others. So it's based on sharing data, which is based on Invenio, which is a data management system written at CERN. B2 Safe is for uploading your stuff, and it gets replicated to all the sites that support your communities. So basically replication keeps it safe. If I upload my stuff and I say I'm in a particular community, then it gets replicated to all the sites, and then I know that loss of copies keeps it safe. And that is based on iRods. B2 Drop is like a drop service where lots of people have these. It's like a cloud thing where I just drop files into a particular location, and it goes and it's stored somewhere, and I can decide whom I want to share it with. B2 Find is metadata discovery, and B2 Stage is interesting. If I need to do work with EGI, for example, I would say, well, actually I need this data moved to EGI, so EUDAT should be able to move the data directly to EGI rather than having to, for me having to download it and then re-upload it to EGI. So something needs to bridge my identity in EUDAT with my identity in EGI.
So you don't actually move the data, you just really authorize someone to access it on your behalf, do you?
We actually, well, currently we do plan to move it. It will have to move to...
I was just thinking, you know, if you've got petabytes of data, that's really massively inefficient, isn't it?
It depends, because I know what you're thinking. You should just say, well, you can access my stuff over there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. We don't have that yet.
Okay.
We could do that. You could do it yourself, but it's not part of the infrastructure.
Yeah.
What you'd need to do is get your EUDAT credential and send it to EGI, to your cloud infrastructure in EGI, and then it would access your stuff, and that works.
Yeah.
But that's something you'd have to do yourself.
Yeah.
Because it sort of goes outside of the support infrastructure for EUDAT.
You know, OAuth ought to be able to allow you integrating OAuth and should allow that to happen quite smoothly, shouldn't it?
Yes, yeah. It depends on what you do with an access protocol, because if you use HTTP, you can delegate that via OAuth,
Yeah.
but probably not with grid FTP.
Yeah.
So there are two steps in the authentication, as you will see in a minute. There's the one I use to authenticate to EUDAT, and there's the one that I'm using once I'm logged in. And these are two different steps, because once you're inside EUDAT, you need to use different access protocols, and one of these is grid FTP to access data. And to do grid FTP, you need certificates, and to have certificates, you need to have them generated for you on if you haven't got them already. So we actually use like a portal where you log in using your federated identity from external IDPs, and once you're inside, the portal gets a certificate on your behalf. And this will be precisely what you will see in my demo if it works. I tested it this morning and it worked, so I'm sure it will work. So we also have a delegation support using OAuth. Now the interesting thing there is whether you want fine-grained authorization or coarse-grained authorization. If I say you can access my stuff within the federation, then we can actually just do that with OAuth and forget about certificates. But we also put authorization assertions inside the certificates as an extension. And if you want that, then you need to have your certificate to act on your behalf. So this is the sort of delegation that David would call impersonation. So we can do both. We can do I authorize you to do stuff with OAuth, or you can actually, a service can get a certificate on my behalf and impersonate me. Because then it will carry my full authorization assertion with it. And
there's nothing actually to stop that latter having reduced privileges, is there? In other words, if your privileges were role-based,
yes,
then the certificate you give to the service has a subset of your roles in it, and you could actually just delegate a subset.
yes,
It's
yes.
the usual VAMS group and attribute.
Yeah, exactly. You delegate a subset of your VAMS roles.
Absolutely, yeah. We don't have the capability to do that yet. Currently,
that was actually built into proxy certificates.
yes.
Theoretically from day one, but it seems
Yes.
to never get implemented.
Yes. Well, it can be done. Something can be done. There's an OGF working group on VAMS prog that will look into the interpretation if you have different proxies in your chain with different sets of assertions inside. And I did play with removing some of these at some for my delegated proxies at some point. So you can do something, I think. Righty-ho. So you'll see all that in the demo in a few minutes' time. So basically, the core component is Unity. Unity is a software component that was developed for Unicore. It's like a front end where you authenticate to. It understands different authentication protocols, such as OpenID Connect and SAML. So it uses WebSSO in the WebSSO profile, and it directs to waves. So you basically select your identity provider as usual, and then you authenticate to your identity provider, and it directs back to Unity. Umbrella, in case you're wondering, I don't know if you can read the small print, but in case you're wondering, Umbrella is the one that's used by the synchrotron and neutron source communities. So the Pandata projects are using that. It's run by PSI in Switzerland. So basically a SAML IDP. Then there's a federation database where we keep track of user attributes. So, for example, for IDPs that do not publish email addresses, we would need to ask users, what is your email address? And this is where we get into a little bit of trouble with EduGain, because we're saying we will record all the attributes that we're going to need for all the services. However, if you only access a few services that do not need your email address, say, then we shouldn't ask for it. So we should really do sort of very fine-grained attribute management, and we also don't have the capability of doing that yet.
Yeah, because you're actually breaking the EU data protection legislation anyway by asking for attributes and personal information that you don't need for the service. So that is against the data protection principles.
Kind of, yes, but we don't know beforehand which services you're going to access, because we manage your attributes when you log in. We have no idea what you're going to do once you're logged in. We're not psychics, or we don't have a time machine. Right. So if you need a service that needs your email address, then we should have that, or so we can pass it on or whatever. We can assert that this is your checked email address. We can't really do fine-grained attribute management at the moment. So we had a chat with EduGain about it, and they think it's probably okay that we ask for the minimal set that you will need to access all the services in EUDAT. But maybe this very fine-grained attribute management is something where you give users the right to release attributes in a very fine-grained way, or authorization to release attributes on behalf of the user. That would be something that was nice to add to it later.
We did that in the previous research. We have a demo of that actually.
Is that the passport thing?
It was actually we called it card space in the cloud initially, and then it became trusted attribute aggregation service.
Right.
So the underlying theory is that every attribute authority typically only releases one or two attributes about you.
Yes.
Yeah, and so you go to your different, you say I'm going to have that attribute from that authority, that attribute from that, and it goes and collects them all and presents them as a SAML assertion.
Yes.
And you do it dynamically.
Yeah. So this would actually be useful for us because currently we don't have we only get attributes from IDPs.
Yeah.
We don't really have the ability yet to pick up attributes from other attribute authorities.
Yeah. So the next step when I get some funding will be to implement that on top of OAuth, because I know how to do it now on top of OAuth and use that protocol instead.
Yes. Yeah. So currently we're sort of taking a few shortcuts here. There are lots of nice to haves in this that we don't really have yet. Yeah. So one interesting technical twist is OpenID. So one of our user communities, the climate modelers, are using OpenID. And some of these guys would like to switch to OpenID Connect, but it's not going to happen anytime soon, so we need to support OpenID. And Unity does not natively support OpenID, so we need to have sort of a bridge to which all the OpenID providers can connect, and then it issues a SAML assertion. And we looked into that bridge that was developed by the Contrail project, but we're probably just going with simple sample PHP, just to keep it simple.
Yeah, that's what we use.
Yeah.
Simple sample PHP,
Yeah. Well, the Contrail one was based on simple sample PHP anyway, so it just added the level of assurance because the different IDPs could have different levels of assurance.
Yeah, we did that.
But here it's But here it's just a single federation that we're talking to. So at some point I'll show you the portal, but this is a specific portal that we're just setting up for the demonstrating stuff. Normally communities will have their own portals, and all the stuff that we develop has to be integrated with that somehow, and that requires effort. So one of the lessons learned is that communities don't always have this effort to integrate stuff because they're busy with other things. So we had to make it really, really lightweight for user communities to integrate this. And one option is, like, if you have a tab or somehow a frame or whatever inside your portal where your EUDAT stuff is visible, and just have the authentication transparently happen, even if you've got two different servers inside. So we're almost like cross-site scripting attack or something, where you have a presentation of your EUDAT stuff which runs on a different server inside your portal, and both of these will seek to authenticate you. But if you're logging in with your IDP will probably remember that it has authenticated you. So when the first time you authenticate, you will type your password and stuff to your IDP. The second time it says, oh, well, that person again, yes, you have authenticated, so you'll just transparently be logged in. So apparently this works. So we can present two different things and you authenticate once to one of them, and then the other one will remember that you've authenticated.
Well, does it actually remember, or does it actually just go through the whole process, but the user never types his username and password in because the IDP remembers that you're logged in?
Yeah.
Is that what really happens, or is it that the actual portal remembers?
It's there are apparently enough cookies set that it will remember which IDP you chose, and which and the IDP remembers that you've just typed your password.
Yeah.
So apparently it is transparent. It takes a little time. It takes a second or two for it to run through all its redirection steps, and it still goes through the redirection steps.
Yeah.
But it just happens to not require you to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. We showed that you can do this depending on how many cookies you store along the line.
Yes. Yes.
You can get to sort of zero-click login.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is better than Amazon's one-click.
Yes.
You still have to do one-click with Amazon every time. But you can actually get it with the cookies. It's just zero. Just go to the server, just move to the next one and bang you straight in without any clicking at all.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is one of the big advantages for having an integrated single sign-on system is that you can automate a lot of things, but the difference between web technologies and things that work well in automating very large numbers of things at scale has been difficult to resolve. So one reason that the X509 has stayed persistently used in the grid community is that it's very easy to launch extremely large numbers of things at scale with extended attribute delegated certificates and roles, and have local mapping. All the decisions are local. We're actually studying this paradigm very closely in the concept of the new need for federated identity management for networks. A lot of software-defined networking functionality requires identity management and access control, but you have to have extremely high speeds and local decisions. So, of course, what we really like to do is to see things like OAuth and OpenID Connect develop the ability to manage such local decision capabilities and scalability, but I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah, it's something we need to look at, all this, what the networking guys are doing.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And that will be the subject of the next Cloud Plugfest will be at the March event in Washington, D.C., which will be the Genie Engineering Conference and the Global Lambda Interconnect Facility, OGF 43, and we're trying to put a Cloud Plugfest there too. There's already going to be a demo day for networking, and we'd very much like to have this kind of event where we can sit down and actually try to show people how to do identity management. Get the networking people talking with identity management people, and security people.
Okay. So one other thing that I've actually been playing with myself personally, because if you spend all your life doing Word documents and budgets and spreadsheets and reports, then it gets boring. We all techies at heart, right? We like to tinker with stuff anyway. So I've been playing with this idea of gatewaying data through the portal. So what happens is, if you imagine a user wants to access data in EUDAT, and you go through the portal and you authenticate to the portal, and the portal gets a certificate that it uses to act on behalf of you, which you then access one of these B2 services with that certificate, and then data comes back. And either data comes back via the portal, or data comes back via redirects. That, on the grid, if you access the grid using it, saying, "Can I have my data, please?" it will say, "Yes, go and ask over here," and it sends you back a URL. And then it depends on you being able to talk that protocol. Grid FTP, for example, if you're using Globus Online or something, to actually access the data. And if not, then you need to go through a gateway where maybe it's suddenly talking HTTP to your browser, but it might be talking iRods to iRods. And then the gateway will have to unencrypt your data or whatever and translate that. Now, if you set up a gateway using Apache mod proxy, then it too can use an onward secure connection, but that's a fixed credential. So what we set up is a gateway which is based on the Perl reverse proxy module. So there was some ancient code that hasn't been touched for about nearly 10 years, and we brought that a bit up to date and made it modular, so we can actually call out and say, we need this certificate for this person and a different certificate from another person. So every onward connection authenticates with your own credential, not a shared credential. So we sort of have dynamic authentication in the onward connection, and currently we're doing it with certificates, but we could also potentially do it with other delegation protocols like OAuth. So if you were using HTTP onwards and the OAuth delegation would be sufficient, then we could have all that managed in the portal. So this has the nice thing that if this portal runs inside your site, you can essentially connect with very little security because you're within your trusted environment. And then the portal will do all the difficult security stuff and go outside your site and connect to the remote service using a personalized, created on demand and cached credential. So this is very nice. This is still a prototype, but we couldn't see anybody who had done it before. So if anybody knows of anybody who's done it before, then please let me know. Or if anybody else is interested, then also do let me know. But I won't be demonstrating that today because that would require me to do VPNing stuff into my home site and stuff, and that will be a bit messy. Although if you're really interested, I can try and do it later over in the coffee break or something. So where are we now? We've got AAI integrating with some of the services, B2 Safe being highest priority, B2 Share and B2 Drop. And we're focusing on communities one at a time. So Clarion, being the linguists, are the top ones because they got a lot of expertise with this sort of technology as well. ENIS, or the climate modelers that I just mentioned, that we're already supporting, and EPOS, our Earth observation guys from Italy. So, and we've also, with a view to taking this into production, we're setting this up as a B2, like naming convention service. So we get a help desk and a ticket queue in the help desk, and we can actually use support on that as an infrastructure. And it's set up as a kind of federation where different institutes run different parts of the service. So the core parts are run at Jülich, and the infrastructure parts, some of them will run at the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, some will run at STFC, and it's all just connected. And resilience is another thing we need to look at, how you replicate services and stuff. And community efforts I mentioned. So, demo time. I will now try to see if I can make the demo work. And what I'm going to show you is just a simple authentication step. And this is not obviously a real thing, because what you're seeing is this connection is untrusted, because we have these sort of homemade certificates on the connection, and obviously it wouldn't have that in a production environment. But I actually left those in there so we can see the redirection steps. Because what you would see is redirecting to an OAuth authorization server and the authentication steps onto the IDP. And so all this complaining stuff that the browser is doing, I actually find that useful in the demo because you can see the steps. It sort of stops you.
Can you show the technical details of the cert?
Well, it's just...
Is it
it's an unknown issuer.
that was what I was trying to... I guess you could see the cert.
Yeah, I think when you do I understand the risks, you can then see the cert later. When you do I understand the risks, then
Yeah. So I click...
Now you can say view certificate.
Yeah, right, there we go, that's what I wanted. So this is coming from Grid Germany. And it's a federation.
It's actually a DFN certificate, so it's not. It's actually pretty safe. It's just that it wasn't in the browser by default.
Right. You could have easily put it there, but you wanted to show the details.
Yeah, I wanted to bone in this particular case, so we can see the steps.
So federation.ca, is that CA specifically for this task, or is it a general purpose good CA?
Right, so we have a user CA in there that generates user certificates, but everything else is protected with IGTF certificates.
Okay.
So, because you need to trust the infrastructure that it's built on, and the way to do that is basically with IGTF. That's the way to, because we've got an established trust framework. We're very much trying not to reinvent the wheel in this thing. Now this one is actually running an old demo script from the Contrail project, which was picked up by EUDAT. All it does is get a certificate, which is what I really wanted to show.
And so this is doing OAuth Java client?
So this one is a CA, which is an OAuth resource, and I said no, this is not a certificate. What is done here is I don't know if you can see the grayed out stuff, but it's talking to a SAML IDP now,
okay,
with a request that is encoded in all this nonsense.
Okay.
And so once again I will permit it to go further, and now it's redirecting to Unity. So the OAuth resource server acts as a consumer of SAML assertions. It's an SP in SAML land, which means I authenticate to that using SAML. But to get my SAML assertion, I need to authenticate to Unity, which will then issue a SAML assertion. So Unity acts as my IDP.
I see.
So that's how we harmonize credentials. That's the important thing, because we need to allow users to authenticate with what they already have.
Right.
So somehow that has to be harmonized somewhere so we can build a federation out of that.
Right.
So a simple password is, if I had a password with this thing, I could just register and get one, but I haven't got it. So I could select a set of SAML federations, and this is coming a little bit off my screen here.
And which federations do you support right now?
So this is all the German ones,
Okay.
all the German IDPs, and there's a...
How would we add? It looks like that's quite a few. Those are all in Germany.
They're all German, yes.
Wow.
And obviously you can search here if you say FZJ maybe.
Okay.
So that's like an interactive search. So, however, I'm sort of in the miserable, unfortunate case of not having an account with any of these guys. So I have to select a third IDP, and there's a Google account that I can authenticate with.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that. I've already authenticated to Google, so I don't need to type my password again. So there's a little bit of redirection steps going on there. And you can see now my access token is available. So this was authenticating to the OAuth authorization server, which has now issued my access token. And normally all of this again would happen transparently inside the portal, because I shouldn't need to see these steps. I'm just showing them to you for demonstration purposes. Because now I want a certificate, and hopefully that too will work. And there we are. So it generates, if you talk to most users, sort of normal people, like and not experts in security, they will not want to deal with certificates. So that's why we have to hide the certificates inside the portal. We need the certificate because we need to drive grid FTP, we need to talk to iRods, we need to do all these things. So all of that is hidden inside the portal.
It's worse than that, actually. If you do give it them, they're likely to give their private key away to other people as well.
Yes.
They don't understand that it's in
Yeah,
private.
they like to share it.
Yes.
The complete set of private key and public key.
Yeah. This is actually a short-lived credential, so sharing the private key wouldn't have a lot of... I mean, it lasts 12 hours or something. And then there's an enormous certificate here, because it's got all the authorization assertions inside it too. And I can try and dissect that if you want, except I need to do some weird stuff.
Just put view the AR on your laptop and do it that way.
Sorry?
Yeah.
So let's pick up the interesting bits. So there's a name. I've got a distinguished name, which in this case has a UTF-8 encoded identifier for me, plus a unique identifier that came out of my was randomly generated at some point and now stays with me forever throughout my use of EUDAT. And there is a feature that I can link different identities to my DN once I'm inside EUDAT. So if I actually authenticate by different means, I should be able to retain the same identity. I'm less sure what we will do if those have different levels of assurance. But let's see. In Contrail, we actually associated your current level of assurance with your most recent login.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right thing to do.
But how did you do it? We did it as an attribute from SAML, so it would be a dynamically generated attribute of the SAML assertion.
Yes, and that is also... so this bit, all this nonsense, is actually a SAML assertion that begins around here, which at some stage will have my authorization information inside. Which is probably, there's a unique ID, my name, my home institute, and that seems to be all today, and my email address. Okay, so I think that's it. That's all I've got time for as well. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your interesting questions and comments.